So today, the workshop of today is called Towards Green Transitions in Transition in the Maritime Sector. It has been organized in a framework of a service that together the cluster Maritime Technology cluster from the region Friuli Venezia Giulia and the Ligurian cluster from Marine Technologies, the LTM, have been asked to the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. We awarded this service with the idea of supporting especially SMEs in the green transition in our sector, knowing that the maritime sector is quite specific. And this is why we decided to submit this application together instead of going alone. I represent the Maritime Technology Cluster from the region Friuli Venezia Giulia. My name is Martina Rossi, and I'm the cluster manager. And I'm here today with Davide. I don't know, Davide, if you want to say something, but he will represent the cluster of Liguria. And we are also here with Carlo Kraskovic, which is supporting the cluster in the region Friuli Venezia Giulia. Again, welcome. I will present the experts a little bit later. I will just say to you that we will have three very, very important experts today. We will have a very short sessions of 45 minutes and then a break of less 10 minutes from one session to the other. The first link is to our two experts. So the first persons that we met thanks to this facility, which are Spiros Kouvelis and Cristina Deligianni. And I will leave them floor to give you some words from their experience and also to give you a short presentation of the experts.
Okay, Martina, thank you very much. I think my microphone is open. So good morning, everyone. I'm Spiros Kouvelis. I am here on behalf of the experts that are supporting this process for the two clusters. And I have to say that it's been a very good and interesting collaboration with the clusters. And thank you very much for allowing us to be part of your effort. The idea was that we wanted to see how the clusters could move towards the transition, towards this green transition. And through a review that we did with the clusters and the analysis of some questionnaires, we found out that there are three main parts of work that needed to be covered. And the three main parts that needed to be covered were three sections, if you like, that come under the titles of first, energy efficiency. The second was how developing environmentally friendly products and services and new materials would be very important. And thirdly, how the circular economy would be an important part for the clusters and the companies within the clusters to move towards the green direction. In order to do that, we established a collaboration. When I say we, this is a group of consulting companies under the name Virture that Cristina Deligianni, that you see in the other screen, is the managing director, in collaboration also with the Institute for Sustainable Development of the European Public Organization, of which I am the director. And so we mobilized three very, very experienced and interesting speakers today. And without further ado, I will go first to the first speaker that is already with us, Dr. Engineer George Peklivanoglu, who will be taking the floor in a few minutes. George is a very experienced person. He studied mechanical engineering and he completed his MSc in renewable energy technology at the University of Oldenburg in Germany. And he completed also his PhD in the field of wind turbine aeroservoelasticity. I promised to him that I will claim to know what this means, but I don't, in Berlin, in Germany. And he has published more than 90 scientific papers and holds more than 13 national and international patents on his field. So George has also 18 years of industrial experience in the wind energy. I'm just going quickly, George, I cannot cover everything here. And also he is the former Wind Energy Committee Chair at the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, ASME, and a member of the German Chamber of Engineers, the VDI, as well as the former representative of the Technical University of Berlin at the European Academy of Wind Energy. George currently is the Vice President of the Unis Energy Group, one of the most important and growing companies in renewable energy in Greece. But he is also very familiar and very knowledgeable about all issues related to energy efficiency, to green mobility, and so on. Just before I give the floor to George, let me say that the next two sessions in which I will introduce the speakers will be first about new materials, and there our speaker is Professor Athanasius Kostandopoulos from the Department of Chemical Engineering of the University of Thessaloniki. He also has tremendous experience working with industry, but we'll come to that when we present him to speak. And our third speaker is Janice Merdekis, who is the Managing Director of the Circular Economy and Climate Change Institute of our own European public law organization, with experience in a number of projects in circular economy. So I will not take any more time because I think it will be much more interesting for everyone to hear George and see his presentation. So from my side, enjoy the presentation and we'll be here for the discussion. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't ask Christina if she wanted to add something. Everything I said, sorry.
Everything has been already covered. We're very much looking forward to these three webinars with distinguished speakers, and we hope you enjoy. And please do participate. It's an interactive session. We're expecting your questions to move this forward. Thank you.
So if I may start, I would like to thank you all for your kind invitation. It's an honor to be in this group with esteemed speakers and very important companies. And I think it will be a learning process for me as well. So I will be more than happy to provide as much information as I can, and I will also be more than happy to deviate from the presentation if you want, and cover your questions. So before I start the presentation, I would like to say a few words about what we do and the direction that things follow in the space of energy transition. And although my background is very much specific to wind energy, specifically wind turbine design and the combination of aerodynamics and control systems and so on from the turbines, in the later stages of my career, it was apparent that renewables and the green transition are not a single-minded, so to speak, choice. It's a general change of the way we think about all the aspects of our daily lives and of our jobs and businesses. So one cannot stay focused only to a very specific part of the renewable energy, and it is very beneficial to widen the horizons and provide more input in order to create a much more sustainable development. So with that, I would like to initiate my screen sharing and share with you my presentation. I hope it's visible.
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, very good. All right, so as it was mentioned before, I represent the company Unis Energy Group. Unis is a renewable energy company, is an energy company first and foremost. However, currently in Greece is the only company with a very much developed vertical integration and a very clear path. 100% renewable energy, nothing more, nothing less. So, starting a little bit with the background information. Before I tell you more about our company, I would like to touch the basics of ESG and circular economy. I'm pretty sure that many of you are familiar with that. However, I think it's good to visit these terms. The part of ESG, environmental, social, and governance responsibility is kind of the key to the next steps of the development in this field. Many of these things started in the past more separated in terms of social responsibility and corporate CSR and so on. However, it is very important that we follow the developments and the trends in this sphere, and we follow the new holistic path that ESG has been transformed into. So essentially what we have to take into account when we speak about ESG is climate change strategy of each organization, small or big, biodiversity rules and regulations, water efficiency in the SMEs, carbon intensity, environmental management system, and this is something that it's not either or. We have to somehow take into account all these things, maybe not with the same success depending on our business focus, but we have to take initiatives towards all these goals. And on the social side, of course, the equal opportunities, freedom of association, health and safety, human rights, customer product responsibility, and child labor prevention, of course, child labor prevention. And the main part here is the fact that sometimes in different companies, it's more apparent. The social and the environmental aspect are actually intertwined, and they are related to each other. So, for example, the part of health and safety is very much connected to how a company would perform maintenance operations, how a company would acquire its energy, and so on. So these two are very much intertwined. Of course, on the governance side, business ethics and the board independence and the shareholder democracy and so on are very much required in terms of ESG performance. But I would say that this is more or less a structural and organizational part of the company, which is a little bit more, it can even function on its own. So a company can be high performing in business ethics, but at the same time, environmentally could be a low performer. Now, speaking about circular economy and the main targets of circular economy, this is very much connected to the environmental part of the ESG. So, in an effort to create, to tackle all these goals of circular economy, one generates the policies of ESG that are necessary for the SME transformation. So a big part has to do with, of course, supplies, and circular supplies are important. Resource recovery, of course, product life extension, sharing, the sharing platform, and product as a service. So these are the key aspects of how one company can, first of all, in its own business activity, develop those skills, but also when transforming its energy intake, it can take these things into account. This might sound a little bit abstract. However, it is very much a real everyday issue. And one short example that just as a teaser for the later discussion has to do even with the procurement of, let's say, laptops. Every company buys computers. Now, the change of a policy from buying, let's say, brand new computers to purchasing second-hand computers, or to being a part of a repair movement of laptops and computers that allows the companies to reuse or donate older computers for different reuse purposes. This is something that is very much real. It's a very much daily life activity that, however, plays a big role in this part of the circular economy and the ESG policies of the company. So, a few facts. SMEs represent 99% of enterprises globally, and this is, of course, to be expected. And, of course, they offer 60% of the employment. They require about 13% of the global total energy demand. And one interesting part here is the fact that ESG policies for SMEs, and as well as energy transition for SMEs, is very often very difficult to achieve. And the reason for that is, even though these companies are smaller, they don't have the critical mass of employees and procedures to allow for this very structured and organized change of procedures and organization. So it is a challenge, specifically for SMEs, it is a challenge, and we do have a mindset that proposes a few ideas that might ease this challenge and allow SMEs to function a little bit more towards the green transition. Now, if we would achieve cost-effective energy efficiency measures, it would be possible to reduce energy consumption of the SMEs by 30%. Now, this is a huge amount of energy, if we take into account the large number of SMEs. But it's also very important to consider that for many SMEs, energy represents a significant part of their cost. So it doesn't have to be manufacturing, it could even be agriculture, but in the end, energy is a key part of the cost of an SME. And usually SMEs run quite effectively in terms of side costs and overheads. However, it is important to keep in mind that by reducing energy consumption, we reduce energy costs, and in the end, we reduce OPEX for the SMEs. This makes the SMEs even more cost effective and even more profitable in comparison to larger operations, larger companies. Now, on the side of energy efficiency, the benefits for SMEs are multiple. And starting from the specific part of the SME in itself, so the benefits to the company, of course, we have, as I mentioned before, the lower energy bills, and this is critical in the times we are actually going through, because right now we experience a very high level of cost of energy, and it is not really expected to be reduced significantly anytime soon. So this means that the sooner we act to reduce consumption and to transform our business and reduce energy costs, the better it will be for the competitiveness of our business. Now, the next big point is the reduction of the use of resources. The use of resources for SMEs does not only represent the waste that SMEs generate, but it also represents the culture of the company and the footprint that lives behind. This is significant because reducing the footprint eventually, as a second step, reduces costs. But the first move is to reduce the overall footprint. A big part of reducing the footprint comes from reusing resources. I mentioned before a simple example of repairing old computers and reusing them in different departments. One of the ways, for example, we do it here in our company, and I think I just give you that as a general idea, is to change our procurement policies. So we have, let's say, a company that has some offices and some manufacturing facilities. Very often, manufacturing facilities use laptops or tablets or other digital devices in environments that are not necessarily clean or office spaces, and they are really production halls. It's not necessary to use the latest and greatest laptop for a production hall. So setting up a policy where you can internally recycle, internally reuse these type of computers from office to production hall to donation and so on is a big step towards reducing the footprint and reusing resources. Of course, improving public image and increasing the overall competitiveness of the company is a key aspect as well. And the public image is something that plays along either we like it or not. And we have to keep in mind that public image is very much connected with another critical aspect, and this is financing. The companies that pay attention to their green footprint and their public image as well are able to attract private equity and financing much easier than companies that do not take this into account, because more and more investors, either we speak about investment funds or banks, are very sensitive to where they allocate their resources and where they allocate their investment budgets. And that's another reason which is very real and very critical for companies to invest in this sort of transition. Last but not least, it is surprising to see that very often this transition improves productivity and improves the efficiency of different processes, not because necessarily green transition and the ESG policies per se reduce time losses or anything like that, but because this procedure forces the companies to revisit all the procedures. And when you revisit all the procedures, it is important to see that some of the things that companies do just because they used to do them for decades like that have to be revisited and in the process get more efficient. So with all that in mind, for the SMEs, the energy efficiency, their path and the path of ESG transformation is something that is very, very beneficial, considering, of course, that there will be a small pain period, the period of change, where naturally people will have objections, things will be different, there will be a little bit of uncertainty, but this is true in every change. Now, in terms of the environmental aspect, when the transition, the energy efficiency leads to reduced pollution, this usually is seen both on the company and the local municipality level. So what this means is usually this reduction of pollution, reduction of waste, and the reduction of resources used by the SME leads to, first of all, a much better public image and response of the local society, but eventually it also usually it also leads to reduction of utility costs. So very often SMEs are forced to pay significant waste management fees or various municipality fees, and in this case, there's a significant reduction in that. Of course, that depends on the location of the company and the local policies. Now, the better image of the company and the fact that it becomes a much more friendly company for the local population means that it also enhances the overall collaboration with the various agencies, the NGOs, the local population, and creates a much more friendly attitude towards the nearby society. Depending on the type of company, this can be extremely beneficial. For example, in our case, when we do renewable energy investments, it's extremely important to show and prove this environmental image as well as the social image of the company, because this in the end allows for easier implementation of our investments. We don't have so many people objecting those investments and those projects being built. Finally, we have the staff and the whole HR of the company, and the fact that the company transforms through energy efficiency, through ESG policies, means that it is definitely more competitive. It is a place where people want to go and work. They open up new job opportunities, sometimes in all the industries. This is very much true for traditional old industries. For example, steel mills. Steel mills used to be old generation companies. However, through the energy transition, they need to acquire new talent, and new talent with diverse know-how in renewables, in energy management, and so on. This creates a refresh of the human resource of the company, and also creates a much more dynamic environment. There's the fact that these activities are so new and they are so transformative creates also a little bit of a community among the SMEs. We have seen this in many countries, and we have seen this also in Greece. Companies that transform through this green transformation, they form sort of camaraderie with other similar companies, and there's a lot of synergy between them. And of course, there's always the fact that, especially through energy efficiency and energy autonomy, companies become much more self-reliant on their own resources, and that usually means less cost to third-party utilities, which usually, if a company acts smart in that way, you can take this benefit that comes from that and distribute it to the staff, and therefore show an actual daily life benefit from this transformation. One example, as an example, I will tell you that A company, at least in Greece, the way we calculate the energy cost is there's an energy part, and there's also a grid maintenance part on the energy cost. These are usually equally priced. It's about 45% is the energy cost, and about 40% of the bill is the grid maintenance cost or the grid fees. Now, by installing, let's say, a renewable energy system in the company, those are significantly reduced. Now, the reduction of the grid fees is essentially a reduction of a tax, sort of a tax to the state. Now, if a company takes a part of this and distributes it to the staff, then they see a direct payback of this transformation, and this is how these systems can be approached in a way that they can increase the engagement of the people to this transition. Now, the interesting part here is the big barrier, and the big barrier is the education. This is something that unfortunately is the big hurdle for transforming SMEs. There's a lot of misinformation. There's also a lot of lack of information, and it is very true that people do not really have a way to approach this whole transformation in an educated and calculated manner. This is something that activities like today's activity, this workshop, tries to fight against and provide this education to SMEs. And that's why I said also from the beginning that it is an extreme pleasure for me to join today's discussion, because I think from what we have seen so far, if SMEs, owners and staff of the SMEs are educated in the ways that SMEs can be transformed and the results of this transformation, I think we will be able to have a much higher speed up of this transformation process. It is very important to, first of all, educate the members of the SMEs. Secondly, plan very carefully the transformation from the energy efficiency standpoint, renewable energy implementation standpoint, and all the other policies. And of course, to start monitoring the impacts, because by monitoring the impacts and measuring the difference, one is able, first of all, to prove the savings, prove the changes, and secondly, to create a marketing material, internal marketing and external marketing, to demonstrate what has been done. Very often, a transformation is performed, nobody measures afterwards, and therefore even the internal marketing is not effective. What does it mean? It means that people still wonder why all these changes happened and what has been the result of all that. If you don't measure this, the effects, then it's not possible to really show the staff and then on a second level show the world what has been achieved. So concluding that basic introduction, I would like to show you a little bit the way we treat both the internal energy efficiency and transformation and what products and services we have created in this aspect. So Eunice is, as I mentioned before, is a very clear-cut case of a 100% renewable energy company. The company has a very clear vision. And I believe we are in the era of clear visions. We cannot be a little bit green and a little bit, pro petroleum and a little bit energy efficient, but also not 100%. This era has passed. All the previous 30, 40 years was describing this era of watered down solutions, so to speak. Now is the time where companies are very much dedicated to a specific clear goal. You can see this not only in the path we choose, but you can also see this in the path that most of the very popular companies in this sphere decide to follow. For example, nobody will wonder if Tesla builds electric vehicles, but also petrol powered vehicles. This is very clear that they have selected a single-minded, very clear path, and I think this you will see this more and more and more. Now, from the activities of UNIS, one thing that I can say is that the vision of the owner has set the pace for a vertical integration that is also a key to the new way of thinking. UNIS traditionally has been developing wind parks, large-scale, utility-scale wind parks and solar parks, which has been kind of the cornerstone of renewable energy development in the last 20 years, 30 years. But we have been developing for several years now a unique production unit under the name of UNIS Wind. And this is essentially the first time that, in Greece at least, that there's a dedicated R&D facility with a wind turbine and new energy product manufacturing unit. Now, the result of that was the project Tilos, as you see on the slide. This is the first green island of the country, the first island in Europe that was that signed the power purchase agreement with the distribution system operator, and it has been multiple times awarded with sustainability awards for a very clear reason. Tilos is a small island at the east part of the Aegean Sea. It doesn't have many inhabitants. It has about 800 inhabitants full time. And of course, in the summer, this number goes 10 times higher because of the tourism. It is grid connected with a local 4-island grid. So it is almost standalone system. So electrically, it is interconnected, but only with a few islands nearby. And it used to have about 49 power cuts per year. So essentially, every week there was a power cut. There were huge issues with electrification, and based on the standard old school diesel generators. Now, UNIS proposed a completely new solution, a hybrid power station, wind, solar, and battery, coupled with predictive algorithms for forecasting of production, as well as forecasting of consumption, in order to be able to bid every day in a unique island stock market, energy stock market, and provide energy for the island. This has transformed the island from a net consumer to a prosumer and a part of the network. So it is a net prosumer, which means that it produces energy, it consumes energy. When there is a surplus, it uses the grid to feed the energy to the other islands. And it has transformed not only the island, but also the businesses on the island by providing much more reliable power generation and independence, essentially, from the grid. Now, the outcome of this and the fact that Greece has hundreds or thousands of islands, some of them inhabited, some of them uninhabited, leads to the design and production of very specific products. So, as I mentioned before, in the unique factory of UNIS, we have been producing for the first time the only Greek wind turbine that has been designed, certified, and produced in the country. And this is a 50 kilowatt machine specifically designed for hybrid systems in order to act in two ways. The first way is to be grid connected and function as an investment opportunity for the medium-sized investor. And the other is for SME transformation. For SME transformation, the main way we use it is when a company, a small medium company, is located at a location with high wind potential. We're able to install the turbine in the premises of the company to produce renewable energy and reduce the energy bills of the company, while at the same time increasing the green footprint of the company. Together with the energy developments, we should not forget the part of transportation. And especially on land transportation, Immobility has been developing very significantly in the last years. For this reason, we have been designing for the moment, the only Greek EV chargers that have been designed, certified, and produced in the country, and we have supplied with those the largest networks in the country. And those are set up in a way, and we can discuss later if you want about the specifics of immobility development. Those have been designed in a way that they fit perfectly to the conditions of the country, and also that they fall under the ESG and circular economy requirements. This is something that is very close to our heart, and the easiest way and the easiest path for every company to go through the transformation is to just procure some equipment. However, one has to keep in mind that if you want to achieve a proper energy efficiency transition and circular economy goals, one has to very carefully review the equipment that is procured. Speaking about EV chargers, one can see that essentially most of them are considered consumer electronics. So they are products that are usually not repairable. They have a circuit board, and all the equipment are connected to the circuit board. They're usually not repairable, and if they are damaged, they are just parts that are usually thrown away. Now, this does not go well with the goals of circular economy, where we speak about reusing, recycling, and extending the lifetime of products in order to reduce our physical footprint. For this reason, we have designed the only chargers in this category that are fully repairable and fully recyclable, and they also belong in a category of chargers that have a very long, are designed with such specifications that have very long lifetime. This is really a conscious decision in order to follow the goals and the path for circular economy, energy efficiency, and sustainability. Of course, when we speak about the energy transformation, and especially when we speak about the energy efficiency of large SMEs, we cannot avoid the discussion of large-scale storage systems, energy storage systems. In this regard, at UNIS, we have been permitting and developing the largest energy storage systems in the country. And even though those are designed to be utility scale grid connected, they are in the range of 250 megawatt each and 1,000 megawatt hours each, so they are extremely large. They serve the purpose of stabilizing the national grid. At the same time, we offer these type of solutions for smaller scales, from the megawatt range down to the kilowatt range, in order to achieve energy efficiency and energy independence for all scales of human activity, from major grid to islands to factories to small businesses to homes. And of course, when we speak about storage, we should not forget the largest storage system that currently is in existence, and that is the grid. Currently, the grid acts as a virtual storage system, and in this effort, we are trying to expand the European grid and of course, offer additional services through that. Now, concluding, I would like to point out that the easiest and first step that one can do in an effort to increase to reduce the footprint of an SME is, of course, to select an energy provider with 100% clean green energy. Traditionally, those providers were a little bit more expensive. However, the situation has flipped on its back right now, and we see that 100% green energy providers are usually cheaper than traditional providers in the market, because a big part of the cost of energy today comes from the CO2 penalties. And renewable energy, 100% renewable energy does not include CO2 emissions, and therefore a part of this cost is removed. This has been a strategic path for us as well. So UNIS operates the only 100% green energy provider in the market, and we have seen a tremendous increase in our customer base, but also in the customer engagement lately because of the prices of electricity. Now, as I mentioned before, it is extremely important to keep in mind that one has to start transforming their company as fast as possible, because this is also a race against time. As I mentioned before, the electricity prices are high, and the faster we convert to a mean of energy that is not loaded by CO2 penalties, the more gain we achieve. So what we propose in UNIS is to transform to the green energy provider, and at the same time enhance our products or services with a green energy certification. This certification, those GOs that are a European Union this is the European Union policy that is universal throughout the EU countries, and this means that it is important to know that those guarantees of origin are essentially state-issued certificates that are issued only to renewable energy producers and can be cancelled, so to speak, can be allocated to specific customers under specific, very, very carefully measured conditions. So I would say, again, the first thing that any company can do today is to get 100% green energy utility and procure energy and the GOs, the guarantees of origin, to be able to at least start by using 100% renewable before all the other steps of transformation. The next, of course, step towards energy efficiency and energy independence is the use of autonomous systems. In UNIS, we call those systems autonomo, which is kind of the Greek word of the Greek verb to make something autonomous. And those systems essentially are technology agnostic. We have the possibility to integrate wind turbines, batteries, EV chargers, photovoltaics of different designs and features, and create autonomous systems. Now, as I mentioned before, in order to do this, to integrate easily different systems, specific technology restrictions have to be followed. I don't want to go now into the details of the design and specifications of for example, of the wind turbine we propose, but I would be happy to discuss with you if you want later. But one thing to keep in mind is that not every energy system out there is able to connect with every other energy system out there and function as a whole. So in this regard, we have developed those energy producing entities, energy storing entities, and energy management entities in a way that they can collaborate effectively with each other. Now, in terms of battery, we have a sort of collaboration with a vendor, but as I mentioned again, this is kind of a general proposal that can work with many other vendors. And the idea there is to use, of course, lithium-ion batteries, which for the moment offer the best competitive advantage, and offer very unique financing tools in order to achieve this energy efficiency transformation and energy and the green transformation of the companies in a way that they will not need to dedicate significant amounts of capex. Now, speaking about energy management, one key point is the use of a holistic platform that goes beyond what we have known today from the basics of energy production and goes and connects production, storage, consumption, and artificial intelligence in one platform. Now, we have a collaboration with a spin-off of the group, which is called Jolty. And in this regard, there's a software development that achieves the integration of all those elements together with all these forecasting services, all these things that we have developed through our smart island. And we implement those things in every home, every business, and every customer that uses those products and services. What this essentially does is basically running multiple AI, artificial intelligence algorithms, which essentially do a couple of simple things. The first thing that they do is they try to learn the way a company or a household consumes energy. Each SME is different in the way they consume energy, different profiles, different amounts of energy, different peculiar characteristics. So, for example, an SME, which is basically office space, consume energy in a different way than a company that operates refrigeration units, or another company that operates heavy machinery. So you cannot have one solution that fits all. So first of all, the system learns from smart meters and smart devices the patterns of consumption. Then it proposes the right system to have the best energy efficient transformation factor for this particular location. It could be a photovoltaic, it could be a wind turbine, a combination of the two, small battery, large battery, different sort of management of those things. When this takes place, then the system learns how to operate the energy production and storage system in combination with the consumption side in order to achieve the best efficiency. And at the last step, it proposes modifications on the consumption side and modifications on the production and storage side in order to achieve even further benefits. So very often we have seen that even though a system has been working for quite some time, with a small change in the profile of consumption, for example, a hotel that used to heat up the swimming pool in the morning, and we see that we have surplus of energy at noon because of the photovoltaic, and by switching the pool heating from the morning to noon, we save another 10, 12, 15% of energy cost. So this is a live system. It's a system that is always evolving, and it kind of learns as it goes. So in this regard, we achieve the energy efficiency. We have a high level of integration with other technologies, energy efficient technologies, reduction of losses, automatic switching of different consumption units, and so on. But at the same time, we achieve energy independence. Why is that? Because we include automation that functions essentially as a UPS. So currently, most companies, most SMEs, have two streams of costs. One cost is for the regular energy cost, and one stream is for the backup power, be it a diesel genset or a UPS or anything like in between. Those are two different streams. Specifically, the backup power is a CAPEX and an OPEX that has been invested with no return. The backup power is essentially an insurance policy. It's not an investment. So in this regard, we double the system as both an energy efficiency and energy cost reduction system. So you produce the energy at your business or at your home from renewables, store it and manage it effectively. And when it is necessary, when the grid cuts, then the system automatically switches to island mode and operates as a large self-feeding UPS, so to speak. So this is extremely important, especially in the times we face now, and I think, unfortunately, in the times that we'll see in the future, because we see that natural disasters, be it a pandemic or forest fire or flood, are more and more frequent, which means that the traditional infrastructure, traditional state infrastructure, like a power grid, have more chances of failure. And every company or household that is not prepared to operate in an island mode, self-sufficient, both in energy, but I would also say even in water and other resources, will face this uncertainty and this risk in the future. So we see a huge rise in demand. You have seen maybe lately these wild forest fires that happen in Greece, heat waves, We have seen also in Germany these extreme floods. This, of course, makes people worry, and especially SMEs, about the uncertainty to their business. And that's why there's a massive increase in the demand of such systems. Very quick examples. Here's a cafe that the system has been installed. You can see the annual energy cost. It's not, as I say, it's a small business. It's a small cafe nearby. It used to pay 2,000 euros per year before installing the autonomous system. And after the installation of the autonomous system, the bill went down to about 300 euros a year. The cost savings were about 300 to 400 euros. And the payback of the system was in less than 5 years, together with storage and so on. The interesting thing is that this business, after the installation of the energy autonomy system, not only increased its energy efficiency, but also acquired about 5 hours of energy autonomy. How is this significant? Whenever you have sensitive goods at such a business, for example, this cafe used to have ice cream refrigerators. In a case of a power cut that lasts quite long, let's say 1 day or half a day, then you would have those ice creams being melted down, and they would have to throw away the whole stock. In this case, because of this energy autonomy system, they can maybe shut down their air conditioning unit or whatever extra lights they have, but keep the freezer working. This is a significant gain for such a business, and this goes beyond the actual energy savings, because maybe with this system they save, let's say, 1,700 euros a year, but by throwing away the ice cream, by not throwing away the ice cream, they save maybe 3,000 to 4,000 euros a year. So you can imagine how significant those extra features are, not only for the energy savings, but also for the overall resilience of these businesses. And the keyword resilience, you have to remember, is a keyword of whatever is now the effort from the Recovery Fund of European Union against climate change, and we will see that more and more. Recovery and resilience are two words that are going to be more and more in our daily vocabulary, and all our technologies would be better focused in this direction. So those are a very few basic responses from very simple day-to-day owners. We just included them as references, and you see a little bit the attitude of the people. It's not only about energy efficiency, it's about safety, it's about being part of a bigger community of companies that transform, of customers and homeowners that transform into a new technology era. One very important part of this transformation is, of course, again, education. And education does not only go towards everyday people or business decision makers, but also goes towards the people that would need to implement those systems. For this reason, we have created a specific web portal with software tools that we offer to engineers that allow them to size such systems for their customers, because in the end you need to spread this knowledge in order for people to accept it. The final part of my presentation will have to go in the direction of immobility, and immobility is also another pillar of energy efficiency when it comes to transportation. And we have to keep in mind that SMEs very often have extremely high transportation costs. The reason is that usually they are vertically integrated in their business, and they include usually a sales fleet. If we're talking about companies that do retail or B2B sales, they have vehicles for the salespeople, or they have vehicles to transport goods. For example, courier service companies that are extremely popular and grow rapidly in the COVID era, they utilize vehicles for their main business, and therefore operating cost of these vehicles and transportation cost is a significant part of the overall OPEX of these companies. Now, e-mobility is something that is growing very fast. What is our proposal and our somehow differentiating ideas? First of all, we propose to think more towards sustainability than towards a traditional business. So we propose the implementation of industrial grade EV chargers, industrial grade network for charging vehicles that will have a very long operational life. This is the way to make e-mobility cost effective is definitely not by replacing the chargers all the time. This is because in the end we will be saving money from fuel, spending into infrastructure. We need to create very robust designs just because of the fact that it's not only so. E-mobility is an exposed business. First of all, the e-mobility networks, if somebody is active in this sphere, are exposed because they are the first real energy IoT activity, which means that everybody can see how many of the chargers are in operation, how many of the chargers have been destroyed, and so on. But on the other hand, also for the SMEs that they operate electric vehicles, it is important to make sure that the key function of the company, the business, which is probably the vehicle, the motion of the vehicle, the fact that the salesperson need to take the car and go and perform their job, should not be jeopardized because somebody maybe threw a stone and broke a charger. So one has to guarantee a high durability, longevity, and adaptability of this infrastructure. The key point is not throw it away if it breaks, but repair it if it breaks, modify it if the systems change, upgrade it if the electric vehicles upgrade. So the last part, which is very key to energy efficiency, is also the part of vehicle to grid energy flow. This means that very soon electric cars will allow the reverse flow of energy from the battery of the vehicle to the house, the business, and so on. This is significant because when we study the pattern, the transportation pattern of vehicles, especially of corporate fleets, we see seasonality and we see standard patterns. Very often, for example, salespeople will use the car throughout the week, but not during the weekend. Or there are company vehicles that are parked at the premises of the company throughout the weekend and they are not in operation. This is the first time that is possible through proper technology to remove cost from this vehicle by letting it be part of the energy mix of the company. In simple terms, what does this mean? It means that the electric batteries of electric vehicles, when connected to a charger, when allowed to achieve this dual flow, they will be able to generate revenue by allowing the energy provider to charge and discharge the car depending on the energy prices. So there are cases throughout the day where price is very cheap. So, for example, the energy from a photovoltaic makes no sense to be sold back in the grid. So it's better for the utility operator to charge the vehicle almost for free, just instead of dumping the energy to the grid. And there are other cases throughout the day, for example, in the early afternoon or early evening or throughout the night, where energy prices are high. And in this regard, it's much better to draw energy from the car instead of buying it from the grid. This is a new way of thinking, and this means that selection of energy provider, selection of vehicles, selection of the energy systems of a company is now an integrated path of integrated part of operation. It's not something that some procurement department is doing or some HR department is deciding. This is a central part of the operation of the company. Just as a quick mention, we have a privilege to collaborate with Blink Charging USA. We are actually members of the joint venture, which is called Blink Europe, and expand the EV charging network of Blink from the US to Europe. And in this regard, we have produced various chargers and we developed the network. And a big part of this effort has been supported by SMEs transforming their businesses. We have now more than half of our EV chargers, so about 450 or so EV chargers by now, and half of them are installed in the premises of various SMEs, which realized the added benefit or to their overall energy efficiency by integrating immobility in a cost-effective and smart way. So this is a little bit of what I was saying before about the production during the day through a photovoltaic, the absorption of a battery, and the use of this battery back in the grid in the evening. This was the example that I gave you before, by shifting with the battery the energy use, either for a residence or for a business, and in this regard, take advantage of the price differentials and make the energy transition of the company not only a move towards energy efficiency, but also a move towards higher profits. And with that, I would like to thank you all very much, and I would like to open the floor for questions, and I will be happy to answer as many as I can, hopefully all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Pehevenglo. I think that there are many contents and many points in your presentation. If I may just make a very quick reflection, I think that we all are more used to think about energy efficiency when we talk about our products and also the processes that lead to the production of a specific product in the maritime. But the aspect which is the pillar of social aspects. Okay, so everything which is not directly, apparently not directly connected with the environment and also with economic issues is something that I have to say in the maritime sector. So when we come from, it's probably, I would say, little at the last position. So it's something that it's not so much considered, not as much as it should be. Probably the chain, the connecting point could be all the efforts and all the studies that in our sectors are under performance and are related to the life cycle assessments. There is really a huge effort for all the topics related to LCA, and probably this would lead a little bit more also the decisions of our entrepreneurs, whether they come from a small or a big company, towards also the element of social aspects. Okay, this was just a very quick just comment from my side. Pretty much interesting the aspect of immobility, since we're trying to understand how we can apply the same concept to the marinas. So intend boats, small boats especially, try to compare small boats with cars in order to involve them
Yes.
in the networks, in the energy networks of the cities, of marinas, and so on. Okay, we are a little bit late compared to our program, but I would ask to the companies that are connected today just to present themselves very quickly and then just make a comment on the presentation. It could be also very much interesting to know in which specific sector you're working, so which are your core activities. This could help in general, because we know the maritime is huge. Davide, if you can help me, so we can switch on the microphones.
Yes, I switch Athanasius, yeah? For Athanasius, okay, it's okay.
Sorry, I didn't.
Athanasius, you hear me?
Oh,
Okay.
can you hear
Yes,
me?
but yes, so he's the next expert. So probably I will wait a little bit. Maybe we can give the floor to our companies. So maybe Andrea Perdelli.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Andrea Perdelli. I'm working in Studio Verme projects. We are designers of ships, and I, in particular way, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm a designer of all is regarding mechanical aspects in vessels, in military vessels or in yachts. And
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
then leading edge.
And good morning, everybody. Yeah, Marco Bobbio speaking from Leading Edge. Thanks for the interesting presentation. As well, I'm involved in, let's say, energy optimization and efficiency of ships. I'm specialized in fluid and aerodynamics. And my main expertise is indeed to optimize ship forms in order to create better and more efficient systems.
Okay, thank you. Then I see here Marco Bui. I don't know if you can hear me. Probably not. Okay, I will just try with Oscar Perosa. I don't know if I'm not giving the right access to the microphone. Oscar Perosa or Marco Bui, can you hear me? Okay, probably not. And then I see maybe Julia, but I'm not sure which is your affiliation. Davide, can you check with me if I'm giving the right access to the microphones? I give you Spiros.
Thank you,
Okay.
Martin. I think that people cannot probably activate their microphone when you're asking them to speak. So maybe you need to give access to all microphones just after the presentation so they can jump in, because probably they're wanting to speak, but they cannot. So maybe try to open all the microphones just after the presentation and see if they can jump in, the names that you called. And then I want to say something when this round is finished.
Okay, so Davide, you can give the access.
Okay.
So
Just
if
to finish
anyone
the
wants to
round.
speak, they just have to activate their microphone now.
Activated microphone.
Okay, so once again, if Oscar Perosa and Marco Bui and Julia can hear us, so please, if you can say your affiliation and the core activities of your company. Okay, probably this is not the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
In any case, if
Okay.
there is any open points or questions, we will be more than happy to answer.
What I would suggest is that after we're done with this, maybe people, if they want to make any comment, they can share their written comments with Martina and us, and we can convey them back to Dr. Pechlivanoglu and the other speakers as well. One point I wanted to make is that I would like all the attendants to keep in mind that from what we heard from George, there are some different aspects of ways that energy efficiency needs to be taken into account. And the one and very, very obvious first one is in the production facilities themselves. Yorgo spoke about the possibility to have more than 30% savings from energy efficiency, which is a very, very big deal, especially for construction purposes in places where you do the construction of boats and other components of the boats. And of course, in the overall operation of things. But then we have also been discussing with Martin and the team in the past about the possibility to combine energy efficiency solutions, for example, with the marinas, and not only charging stations for small boats, but also charging stations in marinas for the electric cars that take people there. That can be very important. And I think that one very important third level of discussion is the energy efficiency of the vessels at sea, which of course Yorgos did not touch on this, but I believe it is a very special case because there you have very important limitations of space, of weight, of ways to do saving and all that. But at the same time, that can be a very important field to explore further, I think.
If I can I can make a very short comment on this. I will not go in the way of main propulsion, but we have done quite some studies together with Greek ship owners, and we have seen that the ships, especially the ones that transport people, like cruising ships, but even normal bulk carriers and so on, they take practically zero measures in terms of energy efficiency on the housing compartments, because essentially, if you remove the part that moves the ship and the storage part, the rest is just accommodation. So in the accommodation part, we have identified and measured extreme losses in heating and ventilation systems working full power with open windows and all this good old stuff. So I think there's a massive part of saving just by taking this commercial and residential way of thinking and installing it on a ship. We proposed a hybridization, a soft hybridization of ships with batteries, not on the main propulsion, but on the gensets of the ship, together with smart energy management on the accommodation part, and the savings were quite high. Maybe not as high as as an alternative fuel, but this is another story. I mean, it's a separate part on its own.
Thank you. So what do you think? Shall we move to the next speaker? Because I think we're already 10 minutes into his time.
Yes.
So, Yorgo, thank you so much for your presentation. As I said, if we have questions and points to discuss, we'll come back to you in collaboration with everybody else. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome Professor Athanasius Kostandopoulos from the Department of Chemical Engineering of the University of Thessaloniki. Dr. Kostandopoulos has a twin background in mechanical and chemical engineering, both from the University of Michigan, Michigan Tech, and the Yale University, where he did his MSc and PhD in chemical engineering. He has been active since, a long time ago, 1985. He has started working on green mobility and sustainable energy. He worked very much with automotive emission control, but also other materials and parts for automotive industry. And he has done very important work on solar energy and hydrogen, for which actually he has been the winner of 2006 European Descartes Prize, the highest level of recognition for scientific work in the European Union, and the 2010 European Research Council Advanced Grant, and a number of many other awards and recognition of his work. Today, Dr. Kostandopoulos, Professor Kostandopoulos, is invited to speak with us about the development of environmentally friendly products and services, especially from the side of how new materials can be important and with specific reference, if possible, to the field of work that we're discussing, which is the design and creation of boats and ships and yachts and so on. So, Professor Kostandopoulos, I will not say more about you. I could be speaking about hours, I do not want to refer to your guitar playing talents that have made us friends through time, but this is another story. So you're welcome to have the floor, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the introduction. It's good to see you, and I hope we have opportunity soon to also be able to join on stage and play our guitars. I am sharing a presentation. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I would like also to mention some other capacity that I have. I am the Chief Scientific Advisor of the Chorus Cluster, which is a sustainable energy and circular mobility cluster. And also, I have been recently nominated by the European Cluster Alliance to be a member of the task force on synergies and evaluating various possibilities in clusters in the European Industrial Forum. And I look forward to actually interface with your ecosystem to see how we can move on further such kind of activities. I would like to say some things about what has been our evolution path, which started like maybe most of you as an individual. I like to use the analog of biology, where we have monocellular organisms. We like to call them islands of excellence in our work, which are driven essentially by individuality or selfishness, if you will. When we were in this stage, we have developed a number of technology platforms on materials synthesis with non-conventional means, nanomaterial synthesis with aerosol technologies and other non-conventional techniques, functionalization of these materials, developing of prototypes, an extensive set of simulation technologies that form what we call a digital laboratory, leading to so-called structure reactors that form the core of a lot of the emission control technologies in the automotive industry, but also they have spilled over into the chemical process industry and also in the biotech, where we are also working. Then moving on, bringing more of this specialization around, we form a kind of organ, a center of competence, which is driven by specialization. This is, a laboratory that I have been directed for 25 years, and there we were able to materialize our vision for clean energy and sustainable mobility using carbon neutral or zero carbon fuels produced by solar energy, CO2, and water as raw materials. Moving on from that stage, I am turning 60 next month, so I think it's enough from, it's time to move on to the next level. This is the level of co-evolving ecosystems. These are ecosystems that are driven by synergy. Synergy meaning sometimes we can compete, but most of the time we collaborate. And we are trying to address large challenges, the grand challenges that we are facing. And we try to do this in an holistic view. At the center of this is always energy. We need energy to process materials. We need energy to move. We need energy for everything. And a large part of these materials as amount and of that energy can be combined or can be integrated in the concept of an urban mine, or as I will call it later, a solar mine, where we can materialize industrial symbiosis paradigms up to now for chemical and other process industries, but I think the maritime industry could be a prime candidate for this. In moving on, and I think it takes some time for the presentation to jump. For some reason, I know I am a little bit stuck here in my presentation. Does it move on your screen? It's okay.
It's fixed on my screen.
Yes, I will reshare it again. It froze for some reason, and we will do this again. Maybe moving on by manual. So as we are addressing today, it's still stuck, eh? Okay. As we are addressing today the green transition, we have to distinguish goals, milestones, enablers, bottlenecks, and monitors that we may need. I am, just seconding the previous speaker's topic about the goals of energy efficiency, a very much related also concept of materials efficiency, and the aspect of recycling, reuse, including, of course, carbon capture and reuse. Some important milestones that define material transitions, material green transitions, and they could be impacting the maritime industry is still there is this holy grail of hydrogen direct reduction. It is possible to do it. It has been also recently presented in the media. It is very costly. We need to have renewable hydrogen to do it, but certainly if one wants to have renewable steel so that he can make components, ships, and so on, this is a kind of one way to do it. We are highly interested in maintaining a so-called evolutionary path towards green transition, where we could be actually producing the same type of fuels that we are using, namely hydrocarbons, but with a carbon neutral footprint, by converting CO2 and water or other waste carbonaceous materials into the value chain of fuels and chemicals, using mainly thermochemical, but also electrochemical routes. Finally, an important topic that it is very dear to our hearts, and very recently we have tried an enormous amount of materials with high success, is the issue of how can we reuse or convert to alternative materials composites or polymer materials or other wastes. Here, again, we can see that there are a lot of bottlenecks, mainly costs, the availability of renewable, essentially hydrogen and electricity, and the availability of infrastructures and suitable monitors to apply in order to be able to follow this transition is, of course, the emission levels, the energy mix, and the consumption and the amount of carbon capture. The green transition is not alone. The green transition is actually, it has two brothers or two sisters, the so-called digital transition, that it is everywhere, but it has to be tamed and managed and put into good use, if I'm allowed to say, to serve the other transitions. Here we are talking about connected equipment, the supply value chains, and the connected workers eventually, using concepts such as closed loop control, autonomous actors, digital twins. Again, there are a lot of bottlenecks here that are related to costs, to infrastructure, but also to energy autonomy. This kind of digital transition, it is also coming into the marine industry, and I expect that it will be highly interfaced and intertwined with the energy transition. And eventually, we must also keep in mind that both of these transitions, they have to have this element of resilience. Following what has happened with the COVID and previously the financial crisis, we are more or less scared. We would like to have some guarantees of resilience, the capability to bounce back. But I would like to comment that actually resiliency is a network property. It's not a property of the individual. Resilience, it is determined by the network topology and the properties that you are embedded in. Again, here, in order to be resilient, we need to have alternative supply chains, clean energy, similar costs, and bottlenecks like infrastructure. And in addition, we need to develop better modeling, a better theory to understand these complex interactions. And at the same time, there is a lot of socioeconomic aspects that have to be included as I heard one of the participants asked in the previous talk. With this in mind, I can describe what our vision and dream had been, which we call it Stairway to Energy Haven. And this is nothing less than reviving dead carbon, which is in the form of CO2 with a high oxidation state, +4, and transferring it back into a lower oxidation state, for example, -4 towards methane or methanol or other fuels using solar energy. So while the civilization and industrial development has relied on breaking the carbon bonds of the hydrocarbons and other carbon-based fossil fuels and releasing their energy so that we can fuel our growth, we have now the reverse step of how to re-energize, and not only re-energize the CO2, but also we can think that we can move up and down that staircase according to the resource that we have available. And sometimes the lower stairs of that staircase, we refer to them as waste. This is just for semantics. There's no waste. All materials are useful, and actually in a concept of a circular economy, there is no resource and waste. This is just varying roles and changing roles that the materials will have. So in that respect, there is a closed loop system that we have been developing with a lot of material technologies, which involves the synthesis of solar fuels, the using advanced redox materials, converting them into fuels for combustion engines with fuel synthesis catalysts, using them into a combustion engine, and then using emission control material technologies to clean the exhaust, and then capturing the CO2 and putting it back into the circle. The elements of each element of this technology, it is proven in the laboratory, and for many years we have been looking towards pushing into further demonstrations and commercial applications, but we know that this is a long path and it takes always time in order to displace one technology. And I would like to make also a comment that as regards mobility, the hype and the very big attraction that electrification is receiving, it is actually making more difficult for other technologies to gain some place, but eventually sustainability and the green transition will not be it will not rely on a single technology. It will need a portfolio of technologies depending on the local conditions to achieve it. And the name of the game here is storage, energy storage. You can get a much higher energy density in chemicals and fuels rather than in electricity the way that we know it today, and what we can expect also for the foreseeable future. So with this, I introduced the concept of a solar mine or solar refinery, where we can have an integrated synthesis of solar fuels and chemicals using as raw materials CO2, water, and any organic waste, and then receiving streams of hydrogen, of hydrocarbons, oxygenates, or other components, electricity, clean water, and a material recovery as metal salts or other materials that can stay as a residue. This concept has been also applied in more specific situations where we can valorize all organic waste that we have tried, starting from domestic and food and kitchen waste, all the way to polymers, plastic waste, industrial organic waste, even lignite or coal, and doing this in a fashion that allows to recover an organic phase, which is the equivalent, let's say, of a renewable crude oil, and an aquatic phase that contains all the inorganic components. We think this technology could be an important enabler in circularity and sustainability in the maritime industry, especially considering materials that cannot be normally recycled, like various of these reinforced fiber composites and other materials that are normally sent into the, to be buried as waste. In these developments, we have, of course, to consider some issues, some barriers, that there is a common perception of innovation as risky. So this is one important barrier. In the maritime industry, there are no spectacular changes. There are incremental improvements. This actually puts innovation into disadvantage, a so-called lock-in phenomenon. This also has as a consequence that there are little opportunities for piloting, scaling up innovations. There is the preference of refurbishing existing large installations, and this again inhibits innovation. And in addition, the long investment cycles and low cyclical profit margins don't make the situation easy for such approaches. However, there are funding and investment opportunities in Europe along the entire TRL space, starting from technology development and demonstration, where Horizon Europe is an important enabler, then moving on into the middle part of the sigmoid curve, where there is an oversupply of various funding mechanisms, the innovation fund, structural funds, the recovery fund, and funds for SMEs, and eventually reaching out to market-based tools like carbon taxes that will be needed in order to make this transition financially viable, at least for until it takes off by itself. So with this, I would like to close and open the discussion, saying that solar thermochemical technologies are an important enabler for sustainability for the maritime industry, not only for fuel, for renewable fuel production, but also for solarizing material production processes for all kinds of materials that are used. We have provided some examples from our research that we are now advancing towards the market for a startup technology company. And we think that we must create opportunities to have initiatives to implement such technologies in practice in collaboration with the maritime ecosystem and the cluster networks where we are all embedded. With this, I would like to close saying that solarization is, to my opinion, a disruptive path for sustainability. We happen to be in regions of the world around the Mediterranean that there is ample direct solar radiation, and the marine industry is actually could serve as an equalizer, because by transporting materials from one place to the other, it helps to build up additional business models that could further push this technology towards commercialization, the exploitation of reverse logistic chains, the use of some of these completely carbon neutral fuels in marine engines, and of course the creation or the use of completely recyclable or renewable materials that are taken from in a circular more or less completely reusable fashion, to be repurposed and given other functionality and be reused in the industry. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that I can probably share the challenges that we collected from companies, and maybe then open a reflection, because there are probably some I would say connecting points, very useful and relevant for this part. So I will share my screen also while inviting the companies that are following us to make some comment on this. I think that I need you to close the sharing of the video so that I can be allowed to share mine. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. So at the beginning of this service, once we had some first exchanges with Spiros and Christina, then we launched a very brief, I would say, survey in order to understand which were the challenges that our companies are facing now and they have in mind in order to answer to the need of a green transition. Basically, the companies filled in a matrix that on one side had the three elements and the three areas of detail that we are targeting today. But at the same time, they put the challenges considering three relevant processes that there are in each company. So design and engineering, first phase, the second process, manufacturing, and then the third one, operation and maintenance. If I go directly to the topic that we have already listened, so the development of environmentally friendly products and services, I think that there are many contact points. For the design and engineering process, the challenges expressed are related to solutions and approaches to consider new storage requirements and also new standards. Then LCA assessments, and as I said before, LCA probably will be something like a flow that will lead to many other concepts. Then the identification of the most reliable partners to deal with new challenges and priorities, and early cost assessment and related issues. The trends remaining in the design and engineering phase, the trends highlighted are related to mapping of energy sources, considering safety and cost issues, again, connected to alternative fuels and high power batteries, tailored ship design solution adapted to changing operational and environmental requirements, and increasing knowledge on the use of new materials. If we then switch to the process of manufacturing, the challenges indicated are increased digitalization processes, and this, as I said at the beginning, is, well, green transition is not walking alone, so also digital transition is going together, so this is pretty much comprehensive. A better understanding of features related to bio-based products. Manage costs, again, the area of costs is always in our mind, and then consider waste volumes. The trends here highlighted are the energy and manufacturing related issues in general. Then for the operation and maintenance process, has been mentioned the training and management improvement, the shift to long life materials, the optimization of operations, digital twins for environmental footprint assessment, and this again links the green transition with the digital transition because they are working together, and the adoption of condition-based monitoring and maintenance. In this area, the trends highlighted are related to green dredging solutions, fast recharging of electrification, and low latency communication technologies. Probably, yes, the maritime, I can say that the maritime has a lot of improvements to be done, and is a good playground, since basically we take technologies from many other sectors. So we take from mobility, we take from the energy sector, and there are also some very specific areas if we consider infrastructures connected with vessels, so ports connected with ships. There are, I would say, very interesting places where some pilot demonstration and pilot activities could be implemented. So the concept of the island, in order to try to look for the full sustainability in a dimension like a port, including all the vessels that are approaching, and maybe have an on port in a specific area, could be something on which many groups, I have to say, basically big companies in this moment are thinking about. I don't know if some of the companies, I would like to hear from some of the companies some comments on this, since we are trying to put some elements in order to allow your reflection on green transition to be maybe some more field and some more related to the maritime, and also to find some pretty interesting counterparts with which you can discuss about specific topics. I don't know if someone wants to intervene and to give a comment on this and on the presentation, which was pretty much interesting.
Let's just explain to all participants that they can just activate their microphone by themselves.
Exactly.
They just have to go to Disattiva or Attiva Audio, and they can just jump in and speak, right?
Right, exactly. I was just wondering and asking if they maybe encountered some issue on this point, but we should have opened this opportunity. So I would invite.
While the companies are taking some courage to come up and make a question, what I wanted to ask Professor Kostandopoulos is the following. Out of your experience from having worked with mass production industries such as cars, for example, because there you develop one solution and then it is applied to hundreds of thousands of copies of the same product. And if you compare to other sectors, let's say, of the economy, where you do a much more tailor-based solution. So, for example, I don't know, energy production or aerospace or something like this. The difficulty and the cost and the risk involved when you do something for mass production is a different thing, because you have more time and probably more elasticity on how you will deal with that. But in the case of boat construction, for example, you have lots of tailor-made solutions, and so the cost for each one of those solutions will be higher. Do you have any lessons to share with us on how one can approach such a complication?
Well, the case was like this in the automotive industry many years ago, where there were many platforms, and they tried to do. If you really focus exclusively on cost, then having standardized components, having a kind of standardized designs and so on, it can help. But to my opinion, in the maritime industry, that having this customized approach, it is actually an advantage, because you are able to try and test ideas. You don't have this issue of recalls. I remind to you the enormous recall that happened in all these excellent electric cars that were running out for many years now in the US by several companies. And such events will happen again, because there is a lot of push. But in the having this long development cycle and having, if I'm allowed to say, a more conservative approach, actually could be an advantage in trying things out, taking the time to let things develop. And from the point of view of material solutions, now there is a huge activity all over the world for lightweight materials, not only for sustainability, but because there could be other advantages as well, direct monetary benefits. And once you make that transition from steel to composites, you are very happy. This has been done in the case of the wind turbines quite some time, and then you are left with what to do when you end this end of life, this what Martina referred to as life cycle analysis will be now an integral part everywhere. Again, the lesson from the automotive industry, which was learned, it was the so-called end of life policies, that the seller is responsible also for the recycling of the vehicle. But here, due to the scale and the sizes of these components, I think we could have an example of, or we could set up an example of industrial symbiosis, where the port, this place, it's not just a place where the ships come and go, but it could be a place where you have processing and you are installing an urban mine using wastes or rejects from the ship, when there is a lot of the water that it is given, that I forget now what is the proper name.
Ballast.
When you have
Ballast water.
ballast, yes. When you have the ballast, it could actually be a treasure energetically, because it contains organic stuff, some stuff which is nasty, but it could be it could form and a very nice raw material for our solar technology, where we convert wastes and when we use water in the process. And at the same time, one could think that interfacing a port, a modern port, a smart port, if you like, with a kind of distributed chemical processing facility, which will rely on whatever is available from the ships that come there, then this generates a lot of possibilities for synergies and actually cost reduction and good experimentation, because at the end of the day, the composite materials are based on hydrocarbon. You can get the hydrocarbon by renewable means and recycling the material. And plus, if you look at these reinforced fiber composites, that they are difficult to recycle, because you have coexistence of organic and inorganic materials. You can actually remove the organic and recover the inorganic. So one can put in the design phase from the beginning what will happen during the end of life, and accordingly try to reduce cost and exposure by interfacing with, in an industrial symbiosis context, with other processing solutions that could develop around the port. Now the port is a place for the logistics, ecosystem. This is what thrives around the port. Some maybe tens of years ago, the ports were places where bars and clubs and other activities were developing. So there is a kind of a replacement of various ecosystems. So I think now it is a good time to think of adding some other ecosystem or some other player in the ecosystem.
Yes, I fully agree. So we are talking a lot about this topic in this moment, because life cycle assessment is affecting all the phases, and not only the design phase of vessels, which is one of the primary, but we are talking a lot about this, especially related to basically fuels, alternative fuels, and so on. So try to understand how much is the overall impact of a change like this when you need basically some power, and also the use of biomasses in areas like ports is something that has been included in some projects that we are following. But probably we need someone who takes, I would say, courage and then tries to implement something like this. Because yes, there are huge plans and huge investments offshore, for sure. Because that's it. Sorry,
can I jump in this, in exactly on what you say, Martina? One of the things that has been very, very much promoted from DG Mare in the European Commission is that all the kinds of support that are provided are specifically aimed at de-risking things. So taking away the risk of going for new solutions. And I think what you mentioned here is exactly this. I mean, you talk about very important industrial scale entities that will not willingly go into something that is innovative, because the risk involved and the cost involved is very, very big. And Professor Kostandopoulos specifically mentioned some of the European Union means that can be used. To this, I would like to add one more dimension that came out of the analysis of all the questionnaires and the contacts that you did with the companies, that they all mentioned the importance of digitization. And I think that if we manage to have a more digitalized process that allows us to link the one to the other, the bits of design and production and recycling, so you can demonstrate the whole life cycle analysis by the links between the different parts, then you know exactly what needs to be de-risked and where your request for support by programs of the European Commission, for example, would go. I think that this combined, with the tools like virtual reality or augmented reality and all that was mentioned, can be a very important thing. And we all know that the European Commission would like to see more integrated approaches that have the LCA, the life cycle analysis, and the digitalization together. And that might be the answer to what you just said, that it's very difficult, to get anyone engaged in something that is risky, long-term and everything. But if they have a good solution, then maybe that's exactly the entry point. That's just a comment. I don't know if you or Professor Kostandopoulos or the companies from their experience want to comment on.
I would like to just add that actually my task in the Industrial Forum, as member of the task force on the part of the European Cluster Alliance, is to work on these strategic dependencies, how we could, bring them up, because sometimes these are not, there is a lot of latency. You don't really see, everybody is so much absorbed by the core business that one cannot see the links and the hooks that could be put together. And this is, a kind of property of nonlinear systems. By the time we talk about the butterfly effect, but you don't see the butterfly. The important thing is to identify the butterflies and then put them to good use. And if a little motion of the butterfly makes a thunderstorm, this means enormous energy efficiency. So this is the metaphor that we have to apply in developing these synergies here.
Pretty much interesting, guys. Absolutely. But I think that the Maritime on this kind of is not the only one, I know, but probably the Maritime in this moment could be the ideal beneficiary of such a study of connections, because probably, but the technologies that we have on board are technologies that are used in other sectors, okay, and then they are basically marinized in order to be applied on board. And on the other side,
we have worked extensively on SCR technologies for removing nitrogen oxides. I have repeatedly talked to our marine collaborators, and essentially the component that we could actually do combined NOx and particulate removal by very conservative. They know how to remove these by scrubbers. So there you have one part of the marine industry adopting scrubber technology, marinizing. I like what you said, marinizing scrubber technology for one problem and then marinizing SCR problem for another. But actually, it's high time that the maritime industry starts to develop solutions that are specifically from start tailored for the constraints, let's say, of the application, not just borrowing and adapting. It's good to borrow and adapt, but sometimes you need to actually sit with a white paper and start from scratch.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, it seems that the companies today are definitely shy. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and add some direct experience from you that worked directly in the design process, which is the basic for then all the concepts of life cycle, basically, and then everything that is after in the process.
I think, again, we'll have to encourage the companies to come back maybe with written comments and questions. Yes. And of course, we will be able to share with Professor Kostandopoulos. In the meantime, I see that our next speaker, Janice Merdekis, is already online. So if you would like to move ahead with that part, of course, first of all, I would like to thank very much Professor Kostandopoulos, and totally welcome to continue with us if you want for the rest of this presentation, although I know you are a very, very busy person. But anyway, we will be in touch with a deadline.
Right now, I have a deadline in the next hour, so I am sorry that I have to leave, but I certainly, will look at the recorded version that I hope there will be.
Thank you very much, Athanasius. Thank you very much for the interesting discussion, and we'll be in touch about the follow-up to this discussion, right?
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you. Here it is for the third session.
All right, so I will just very briefly introduce Janice Merdekis, who besides being a good friend, is the Managing Director of the Circular Economy and Climate Change Institute of the European Public Law Organization. This institute is like the sister institute of our own Institute for Sustainable Development. And Yanis, as we say in Greek, or John in English, is the managing director. He's an expert in circular economy business, and he holds a degree in biology and in strategic marketing from the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. Yanis has a lot of experience in organizing important projects for circular economy and for issues related to the blue economy as well. So he has been working on blue economy issues. And he will be talking with us today about the third session, which is adapting circular economy solutions from materials. So the life cycle analysis and the circularity that we want to discuss in the sector of the work that is performed by the cluster and the companies that are there. Gianni, thank you very much for being with us. And unless Martina or Christina want to say something, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Spiros, for the kind words and for the warm welcome. We are representing European Public Law Organization. I don't know if you have mentioned some things in your presentation, Spiros or Christina, in the audience. EPLO is actually an international organization. It's related with public law, human rights, environmental law. It has been established in 1995. It has a board of directors. Its board of directors is related with the European Commission, with the Council of Europe, and more than 75 universities from 17 countries are participating in the board of directors. It has implemented more than 200 educational, research, training, and institutional building activities and lots of projects, while it has offered technical assistance in several topics in more than 70 countries. We must not forget that it's also an observer. It holds an observer status at the General Assembly of the UN. When it comes to Circular Economy and Climate Change Institutes, the mission is to promote circular and sustainable practices, mainstream circular economy in all policy areas, and conduct climate and environmental diplomacy. Its main target is actually the adaptation of local governments, regions, and private stakeholders in the regions, as well as citizens, to the new economic model. Why climate change? Because it seems that a lot of inequalities are about to happen. We have seen data from 1,500 regions in 77 countries that stated that an increase of 3.5 degrees until 2100 will result in a drop of global GDP from 7 to 14%. And according to the latest article of the EU Observer on Climate Change, without implementation of strict policies, the Med region that we are operating in will be actually a hotspot. It will be 2 degrees Celsius warmer by 2040, and this will impact the whole population. So policies are needed and quick responses are needed now. You see here that when we are discussing about the Med region and Europe, we are actually seeing a drop of GRP close to 20%. Of course, there are several strategies and initiatives that are related with the fact that we need to act. And when it comes to the EU, our aim is to become the first continent that's carbon neutral by 2050. One of the major initiatives is Fit for 55. Of course, the EU Green Deal, the new Circular Economy Action Plan with its 35 complete actions, where you see here that 80% of environmental impacts derive from the product design phase, and this is actually something that is very closely related to what you are seeking to do in your study and in your work. We have already distinguished the 7 key product value chains when it comes to textiles, buildings, batteries, electronics, plastics, packaging, and food waste that are related with the actions that we need to take. And of course, there are several EU financial tools that are launched. But we must not forget that circular economy is actually the main solution for the transition that we are seeking. Several strategies are implemented in the EU level, as I have said before. The SDGs, the EU Green Deal, carbon neutrality and climate change plans, circular economy action plan, and of course, the digital economy planning, which is related with the green economy and the green transition that we are seeking to make. When it comes to circular economy, I will try to be very brief. It's actually a key priority for the EU. The value of products, materials, and resources is maintained in the economy. We are speaking about a new economic model. And when it comes to the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, it has been fully implemented in all its 85 actions at the EU level. And now it's the time that all these activities and actions, they are going to be implemented in the level of member states. Circular economy is not easy. It needs a lot of time and it needs a lot of persistence to be actually related with the targets that have been set. And it needs a lot of scientists, it needs a lot of work to be done in national, regional, and local level. But according to some assumptions, it can lead to savings of 600 billion for the EU businesses and 8% of their annual turnover, the creation of 580,000 jobs, and the reduction of EU carbon emissions by 450 million tons by 2030. Some cases of circular economy, for example, we must speak now for the 9 R's, and the 9 R's means refuse when it comes to waste, rethink, reduce, reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose, and recycle. And some, let's say, best case scenarios that we have isolated is actually circular supply chains, where we have fully renewable, recyclable, or biodegradable materials that can be used actually and can be entered in the life cycles. For example, we have Akzo Nobel's paints and coatings that are made only from bio-based materials. We see, when it comes to recovery and recycling, very vivid knowledge that's coming from major players of the market, like Procter & Gamble or IKEA. For IKEA alone, they need, keep that number, they need 700,000 tons of plastics yearly. So what they have done is actually that they are trying to fund and finance certain plants that are actually recycling plastic. I know from my experience that they are having a collaboration with a major plant in Bulgaria that's actually providing them thousands of plastics of 99% of purity. Another example is Procter & Gamble, which actually operates 45 facilities on a zero waste basis. When we were discussing about the ability of savings and the ability of creation of jobs, we see here for Procter & Gamble that this whole project has created more than $1 billion in value for the company over the past years. Another issue that is totally related with what you are trying to do in the maritime sector is actually product life extension. When it comes to the machinery, when it comes to the hulls of the boats, etc. And we see here, for example, that Panasonic is operating a high-tech disassembly, reuse, and recycling plant, which recycles around 700,000 products a year currently. And then another issue which is very hot is the product as a service, where manufacturers and retailers, they actually bear the cost of ownership adjusting their focus to the longevity and reliability of products. I mean, what they are doing is actually they are not selling you a refrigerator, they are selling you a service for life. They are not, for example, Michelin is not selling you the tires. They are charging you for charge per kilometer solution for tires, and you can have a contract with them, which can last something like 5 to 10 years, and they will provide you with your tires. But they will make sure also that these tires do not end up in landfills, and they are recycling them. So when it comes to your study, I tried it. Okay, circular economy is vast. I tried a little bit to distinguish some aspects that are important and to combine them with your findings also. It's a very good idea to separate the key stages of operation. Major focus has to be in the design and engineering phase, because this actually will change the whole concept that the companies will provide their services. And it's actually the launch, the beginning of everything. And according to your report, trying to summarize the most important things located in the report, I am speaking about rethinking of processes and designs. This is a very wise element that we have to see the linear processes, because these processes now they are totally linear, and we have to find a way to close the loop to make them more circular. And they have to contain these designs and processes. They have to contain recyclable parts, for example, plastics, steel, etc. IT infrastructure is totally important for reverse logistics in order for you to be able to trace the elements and the materials that you are using, where actually they are ending. They are ending up in a landfill. They are ending up in a waste management plant, and the owners of the waste management plant, they see them only as a waste and they don't know what to do with them. So you need reverse logistics. Then a good system of green procurement standards has to be set. We have been participating in several European projects that there are platforms running now on how to move with your procurements and make them more green. Of course, it's mentioned again and again in your study and in your work, the thorough and holistic LCA analysis that are needed, and awareness campaigns to the stakeholders of the sector. When it comes to the construction and manufacturing, of course, we have to find the recyclable raw materials. We have to find and trace the recyclable materials for construction tools. We have to proceed with the reverse logistics, and we have to make feasibility studies and profitability studies on whether these materials they are actually good for each of the businesses that are that we are seeking to transition to green. In here, we must state that a benchmark analysis on the clusters, probably quantities and materials, has to be conducted. Then when it comes to the operation and maintenance, of course, a collaboration with the customers is very important in order for us to set eco-sustainable targets. Redesign, maintenance, and repair systems is important. End of life is this is a very big challenge. That end of life when it comes to boats or when it comes to maritime sector is often distant from the manufacturing site, and this is something that I will analyze in my next slide. Digital twin and economically viable solutions. So these are the things that are very carefully produced in your study, and I will try a little bit to speak about them. Another very clever thing that you have done, and from what I understand, you have mapped your clusters companies, is the fact that we cannot speak with the same language when it comes to maritime transport, when it comes to yachting, when it comes to ports and marinas, when it comes to offshore ROVs and AUVs and VMS and satellites. So there are different strategies that we need to follow in order for us to be able to be more concrete. So I try to make that distinguish also in order for us to see in the level of maritime transport companies what they can do, in the level of yachting what they can do, etc., etc. So when it comes to maritime transport, the challenges are very big, and they're actually connected with lots of issues. The thing that I would like to state here is the fact that the average vessel sizes are keeping growing over the years, and we see that the ships that are built in the last 4 years, in comparison with the ships that are built 20 years ago, they're actually something like triple or 5 times bigger. When it comes to general cargo, we see that they are 3 times bigger, and bulk carriers, they are twice as big. So what we see is actually that with the trend of the market that is rising, I mean, the maritime transport is rising over the years, we see larger and larger ships. This is actually giving us 2 abilities. The fact that we can make economies of scale, first, and second is a golden chance for Europe to redetermine the fact of disassembly and recycling of its boats, and to try to be proactive and bring these activities back to Europe in order to close the loop. So we see when it comes to ship recycling that we have a trend that it's actually going down. And in 2016, we had 29,000 tons gross tons that were recycled, while in 2019 we have only, as reported data, I mean, 12,000 gross tons. This is something that we must consider. When it comes to the disassembly part, most of the disassembly and most of the recycling is happening now in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Why? Because, of course, as you understand, the environmental regulations there, they are very loose, although we see some isolated activities and isolated initiatives from companies that are happening. But there isn't at the point push from our states, from our regions, to reclaim actually what is ours and reclaim the materials that belong to us. They belong to the EU manufacturers. So, of course, the costs are going to be higher, but we totally believe that when it comes to the cost in relation with corporate responsibility and in relation with targets of sustainability and environmental scores and environmental friendly companies, they would be willing to bear some costs. Also, another issue is the fact that probably when it comes to the conversation of dismantling and recycling and end of life vessels, then again, probably an initial cost for this kind of activities could be set in the manufacturer. And we totally believe that now, in comparison to 20 years ago, the whole community is more than willing to understand and to pay this kind of costs. So, we have some examples. Myers companies trying to create some units and some decommissioning plants in Denmark. We have some examples of, for example, Frederiksson Port, which wishes to perform a 3-stage plan expansion, and what they are doing is actually they want to be able to produce around 200,000 tons of steel each year. And apart from the steel, they are trying to seek activities that are related with non-ferrous metals such as copper, aluminum, and zinc. What we are proposing, in order for us to find solutions when it comes to the maritime sector and to the maritime transport sector, is actually to bring back responsible recycling decommissioning plants in the EU, in order for us to be able to trace the materials, in order for us to be able to apply reverse logistics, and in order for us to be able to produce recyclable materials that could be of use in the secondary market. Another aspect which is very important is cut the ship into pieces and try to understand the materials that we are using and the quantities that we are using per unit, in order for us to be able to see how we can retrieve this kind of materials. Then, of course, green procurement principles have to be applied. Industrial symbiosis philosophy is an important step, and this actually is related with these decommissioning plants, and of course with the major companies that are performing maritime transport, in order for them to be able to be supplied with materials that are green. Decarbonization of the sector is actually a very big issue. And we are not speaking here about LNG, we are speaking about the next generation of fuels. Decarbonization of logistics, of course, is also an important step, and prolonging lifespan of machinery, in general, of equipment, and retrofit and refurbishments are an important step. When it comes to yachting, it's actually the second topic. We see that the sector keeps having significant effects: Posidonia destruction, noise disturbance, release of lubricants, sewage and grey water, anti-fouling paints. Here also we have a major opportunity, and here also is a major opportunity because when it comes to ELBs, the end of lifeboats, okay, they are not these monsters, these big ships that you need very big shipyard to handle them. They are actually smaller vessels, and they are not only smaller vessels that are created elsewhere, most of them are created in the EU. We are speaking about also yachting and fishing boats. Only 2,000 of them, they are properly dismantled. The remaining 78,000, they are actually ending up in incinerators. They are causing massive CO2 emissions, and actually we're speaking about a linear perspective, and totally not circular. There are several studies of the European Commission, what they will do and how they will try to fund these operations. Actually, they have estimated that 80 million are needed in order for us to be able to treat all these ELBs. When it comes to our own perspective, we are actually saying that we need responsible recycling plants for ELB, and now it's the perfect time to claim these kind of plants to push forward. I mean, all the clusters together, all the stakeholders together, all the waste management facilities of one area together to push forward in order for some regions to be able to set up this kind of plants. Because it's not only plastics, it's all the equipment, it's all the material of the boats that are actually, that could be a good case scenario to be reused in new boats. Of course, we need the European boats, the European boat inventory to be finished, new materials to replace polymer plastics. It could be set as a strategy, a disposal fee per boat sale. Nobody would deny, let's say, to pay something like 700 or 1,000 euros more in order for him to secure that the disposal of his boat is going to be conducted in a good way, in an environmental friendly way. Of course, again, we are speaking about industrial symbiosis principles. We can seek of sources of aluminum, of wood, of iron from the region, from industries of the region. Again, decarbonization of fuels, and here probably we would seek of solutions about electric propulsion, prolonging of lifespan of machinery that is used in the boats, and another element which is crucial when speaking about yachting is actually we can educate the skippers and the crews towards circularity, towards the proper use of waste management, not to use single plastics, to respect the oceans, etc. So they can be the voice, an intermediate voice of education in the sector. When it comes to ports, there are lots of examples. I think that you have discussed a little bit in the previous presentation about materials and about strategies that some ports are following. Now the trend is not sustainability of ports anymore. We are speaking about green, circular, and automated port. This is going to be the future. There are several initiatives. We see the Port of Amsterdam that actually is very active when it comes to circularity. They planned actually to transform 33,000 metric tons of non-recyclable plastics into 35 million liters of clean fuels, and they have created this establishment in their own area. Some other examples that the ports are moving towards their green transition is actually Aalborg, for example, that they are using alternative materials and waste to energy approaches in order to reduce climate impact. Port of Goro, what they have done is always dependent on what you are having actually in your area. Port of Goro, actually in the northeast of the Adriatic Sea, they saw that they have a lot of marine litter. They gathered the marine litter and they linked it to their mussel farming. Other examples, for example, in Boulogne-sur-Mer in France, the former waste streams from the fishing industry, they are now used to manufacture a range of high-value products, cosmetics and other byproducts, human nutrition, for example, or animal nutrition. In Zeeland, seaports in Netherlands, they are implementing industrial symbiosis because they are having lots of industries in the area, and lots of examples as the Port of Antwerp, the Port of Marseille, Khame-Khakotka, and even in China, in Asia, we are starting to see the first elements of industrial symbiosis. Then again, we must not forget that when it comes to the IT services for circular economy, all the elements that we are discussing here, they can be digitalized. For example, when it comes to typical investments and projects, we see ICT tools for predictive maintenance and repair so as to extend the life of products. We can use digital tools in order for us to facilitate reverse logistics. We can create virtual marketplaces for secondary raw materials in our own region, or gradually in a local level in the beginning, and then in our own region in a regional level. And there are several other aspects of digital economy that can accelerate this transition that we are seeking. So I will be back to your study. I will be back to your work again, combining the key stages of operation and the topics and the sectors. And I would say that we need to seek if there are some national level initiatives that are running and they are related with what you are trying to do, because for sure they exist, but the issue is that probably they have not yet incorporated what the maritime clusters are doing. They have not yet incorporated your potential of circularity and your potential of greening the whole chain, the whole supply chain. What do I mean by that? If they see, for example, that there is a small shipyard in the southern Mediterranean and is producing only 5 tons of plastic, this means nothing to a waste management facility. But all the cluster together, if we have the numbers and see what actually they are using, what actually they can use, this is a very good exercise in order to try to combine it with a national initiative. Then, of course, we are totally for the local and regional level. I would suggest that the clusters should seek any circular economy or regional action plans that could be contacted. I mean, the authorities could be contacted in order for you to say that, listen, we are here also as a maritime sector, and we want to be part of that circular transition that you are seeking to do. One of the most important steps is to come in contact with the waste management and scrap stakeholders, because probably they are not aware of your needs. Industrial stakeholders that could come in contact with you in order for them to perform one of their green projects. Why not in one of your areas and one of your locations, in your company's locations that you are located in? Of course, important element is energy and fuel providers. The labor market potential on circular economy, if there are experts in these regions that could stand that kind of transition, that could hold the information. I mean, they could pass on the information needed. Crucial element is the benchmark study in order for the clusters to prioritize their materials and their flows that they wish to transform from linear to circular, selection of IT tools, prioritization of some circular projects. They might not be actually circular projects. They might be one project of using renewables in one facility. It could be another project of decarbonization. And then again, we're speaking about awareness and business training and mentoring, and to see where the funding and financial tools are located in a national level, in a local level, in a regional level, in order for the clusters to exploit them. So all this exercise will definitely lead into new jobs and regional development. That was it from my side. I hope it wasn't so long, but the topics are quite a lot. That's why I try to make these distinguishments. Thank you very much. Now I have the issue of stopping the presentation.
Okay, but we can keep this slide. It's not so, we can keep this in any case.
Okay, till WebEx dies, till the end of WebEx. Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was, I would say, pretty much interesting and comprehensive, because it sums up many of the issues we know are a part of our sector. And thank you for the last part, because since we are clusters, so we know that there is a lot that should be done in terms of also policy pushing, because there is a lot of effort where not, I mean, inputs should not come only from the bottom, so from the companies and from, I mean, the operators on the market, but at one point in time, also what is coming from the top, so from who decided the rules, the regulations, and the policies in general, they should meet in one point. And we are used to say that clusters are in between, so this is exactly our role. And what to say? The point on new materials is, I mean, you perfectly picked the point, also related to the different categories of ships and boats, so the yachting sector and the maritime sector. You mentioned very well that the cost today, the practices of dismantling ships and boats, despite the fact that they are not so diffused, sometimes they're not always use, some proper process. Okay, so the fact that ships goes to Bangladesh or India or whatever, and the fact that small boats unfortunately sink in our seas. So this is basically what usually happens. But things are moving and are changes. But especially on this in this point, on this point, I think that the point about the regulatory framework should be updated absolutely for the entire sector in general. Also because we are all the parties, all the actors and the SMEs are thinking about bio-based materials, and they are struggling behind the concept, will we be able to recycle it 100%, to reuse it 100% in a more easy way compared to what we do with actual fiberglass or other materials. And some of them are also coming back and thinking about wood. So thinking about new ways which we can use wood in a more modern way, I can say. Okay, so pretty much interesting. I would like to welcome again the companies that are connected today, because this point is the point about materials in general. So the processes that are linked to new materials is essentially in the design process and then in all the other processes that follow. So manufacturing is hardly affected by the processes you choose. Okay, and everything that comes after, maintenance, and then in the end dismantling or whatever you want to do. I know that probably you know that from the experiences of those you mentioned, 2,000 boats that have been properly dismantled compared to the 78,000 that are not. You probably know that the cost for dismantling properly a boat or a ship in some cases are higher than the cost of the boat itself, and not the cost that a boat has at the end of the life, but the cost of the boat that the boat has at the beginning of the life. So I mean the price. Okay, so this is something that should be considered when making basically business plans, also to understand where to put some dismantling areas. I appreciate pretty much what Maersk, for example, is doing, that you mentioned about the dismantling facilities, but also on the smallest side, so on the small yachting, which is not so huge in terms of the single boat, but in terms of numbers, there are a lot of boats, as for sure you know, in Greece, in Italy, in all the Mediterranean, and in many other areas. There, I think that there is a good space for new entrepreneurial initiatives that are, I mean, set up according to all the elements needed for circularity, for a circular idea and economy in general. Okay, I will just stop myself now. I would like to hear someone from the companies here, if there is someone that want to share some experience or comments. I don't know, also Spiros or Christina, if you want to intervene.
Yes, but I would prefer to hear first from the companies, so I do not want to jump in. So Oscar, Marco, Luca, Julia.
Yes, for sure we will give the opportunity to come back, as we did also on the other.
Absolutely.
But well, the idea is the one of having a small interaction also, just to know the feelings about those topics, because they are basically, they will be affecting the decades after us. So it's quite interesting to know how
still, while the companies are trying to gather up the courage to speak up, let me say one thing or two that I consider quite important. From what you said, it is clear that currently it is much cheaper to just sink a boat, or to just dump it in a dump site or in a piece of land that is fallow and unused by the coast, and let it rot in peace in there, instead of recycling it. And that goes for any kind, even for the small ones, like fiber boats or inflatable boats and all that. We all see those, even for the very small ones. But that entails one parameter that is very important, that this includes an externality. So you dump actually the whole cost of the thing to the environment and to society, and it's not internalized by anyone in the cost of the boat itself when it is sold in the first place, or the cost of user and everything. And the reason I'm saying this is that, as you said, eventually there will be some kind of regulation or even some kind of legislation that will try to internalize some of this cost within the concept of the circular economy that the European Union is promoting. And in my view, it is always better. I mean, they say that the best way to prepare for the future is to create it yourself. So the reason I'm asking is that already the Institute for Circular Economy and our own Institute for Sustainable Development are collaborating in a number of things. And I believe that this could be a very important thing also in the sense of internalizing some development of technologies. If I take it from what Professor Kostandopoulos was saying before, instead of just, what was the word, maritimizing technologies from other places to create new technologies or new opportunities for business. And I'm saying all of this because I would like Yanis to comment a little bit on the approach that we have already collaborated on for developing new opportunities for business and employment and so on through the context of regional collaboration, like all the work that the Institute is doing for Intering and so on. I believe that what we're discussing here could be a very important opportunity to develop some joint activities, also involving the clusters that have shown the interest for this, to try to mobilize funds from the European Commission and European funds in general to push for developing, a kind of a wave for change, for this thing that we're discussing. So, Yanni, would you like to comment on this a little bit?
Yes, of course. I could add the fact that most of the small boats are actually now dismantled in Turkey, which has taken a very big market share. And we strongly believe that other southern countries from the Mediterranean will follow when it comes to med areas. Of course, we are discussing about the same sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and some practices that are not environmentally friendly, they are followed there. And of course, we must not forget the fact that we are losing funds when it comes to this activity. Firstly, because jobs that could be created, they are not created in the EU. And secondly, all these materials, they are actually, we don't know where they are ending up. I totally understand that the whole procedure has costs, but that's why we're discussing about a regional level. And very successfully, Spiros stated the fact that, for example, you as a cluster and the regional authorities together and 10 or 15 companies could create an initial conversation on where I'm about to create this kind of facility. Because of course, the business plans, from what I understand, they are not viable if you start from scratch. But when it comes to the local authorities and the regional authorities, they must be convinced if, okay, there is a volume of materials and the volume of companies together, and these business plans could be viable, of course, with the collaboration of the state in the initial phase. That's why very important for creating any kind of market and business analysis could be a benchmark study and try to see actually what is your impact when it comes to materials and circularity. This is actually the first thing to do if I was in your case. And then I would also seek for some opportunities with other companies in the region. It could be, for example, a waste management plant. It could be an energy facility plant that they would like to test something in collaboration with one of your members or more of your members. So the golden and key word is synergies. And you as a cluster, you have an amazing opportunity to create some synergies. To tell you the truth, I have not studied exactly which are the companies and what are the sectors and what are the materials that they are using, and but I strongly believe that if you gather this data and you know exactly what is your impact, then you can prioritize some small scale, pilot scale activities and then move on to the next steps. I don't know if I have covered you, Spiros, but I strongly believe that there is a golden opportunity. And this is actually why the European Commission thinks that the clusters, they are one of the most important aspects of achieving the transition towards green and sustainable, and towards green and sustainable economy and circular economy. I mean, you are very high in the agenda.
Thank you, Yanni. Yes, you have covered my question. Thank you.
I also may add something on creating new jobs and the labor market. This is a golden opportunity as well to, first of all, attracting new talent, new people that are very anxious about the environment, about sustainability, the green transition, and jobs that have to do with the circularity or the circular economy can be a great opportunity for them, but also it's about reskilling those people that are, you know, they're losing their jobs. We see this a lot in Greece, you know, with you know, people in their 50s or, you know, late 40s that have to be reskilled and upskilled to actually take up positions, green jobs. So that is also a nice opportunity to reskilling part of the labor population that is, you know, that may not have, you know, formal education or, you know, they're unemployed. So this is also something that I would look into with the regional development entities in Italy.
Yes, absolutely. We started, if I just an example, we started on both levels you mentioned. On the one side with our regional government and action, which should bring all the marinas that we have in our region towards, I would say, more 100% renewable energies marina. Okay, trying to link those marinas with the shore energy networks I've mentioned very briefly in our first part of the meeting today. I mean, we got the fact that this point has been added among the priorities of the smart specialization strategy. And we got, in this sense, the commitment both from policy level as well as of the operators. So then the points that should be below. The work has been long, but we are now in the right moment. And I think we should do something similar on this topic, on the topic of materials, in the sense of dismantling, reusing, activating all those synergies. I mean, connecting with other supply chains and other value chains, because then this is the key point. We are probably, this is my opinion, we are pretty much used to work in our sector. So I know what enters, I know what comes out, but then what comes out, no matter for me where it goes, I think we can stop thinking in this way and then just consider our local dimension, but then all the things that are existing in our local dimensions. So if I don't know, if my region is pretty much strong for agri-food sector, for, I don't know, chemical industry, no matter what, but just try to understand which are the potential synergies among the leading market areas that a specific area is covering. So yes, that's it. And we made a very, very small, I would say, step in this direction. But then if we open this little hole, that probably we will be able to open doors and everything else. I don't know, again, from the companies, if someone wants to say something.
Can I just ask you something, Martina, on this, what you just said? Do you know if there is any across-the-board collaboration with other clusters other than the ones that you work with in Italy, for example, with other countries like in Greece or France or, I don't know?
In our sector or in general, you mentioned?
In the sector that we're discussing now, yes, in your sector.
Yeah, in the maritime, we have, for example, we have a memorandum of understanding, and we collaborate with one of the maritime clusters in Greece, and the same in Croatia, and so on. I have to say that we are pretty much focused on the Adriatic and East Mediterranean area, because, for example, the LTM, so the other cluster, being located on the other side of Italy, they have much more relations with the West Mediterranean countries and clusters. But in general, well, I'm leading a project with a Spanish maritime cluster, so really no problem. Yes, so there is a network, and we try to enlarge these collaborations. But if I have to say to promote such projects, such strategic projects, definitely I think we have to think about on a local basis first, and then maybe try to export, if I can use this word, export the model, the successes, and also, the things that should be improved in other areas, because every area is quite site specific. Okay. Mm-hmm. This idea of building autonomous islands works always also if we are onshore, not only if we talk about real islands. Okay. And this is a comment and a reflection that many are doing related to hydrogen, the production of hydrogen. Mm-hmm. You probably know about all the things about smart grids, so the production, storage, use of alternative fuels in general, but then hydrogen specifically, which could serve many, many markets, is sometimes referred to very, very specific areas, geographical areas in this case.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Again, guys from the companies, last call for you, if I can use this.
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm Marco Boi from ITEC. Maybe a few words. So first of all, it was really interesting, both the previews and this presentation. ITEC, it's a software company, and it's working in a niche on what we say today, because we work mainly in the logistics part, gate automation processes for ports and harbors. So it's we are not directly the ones that can do a lot in the process, but we try to use these arguments when we design our solution. And so you spoke today regarding the product life cycle, for example. It's what we try to do, to use components that can be used for many years, even if there is an obsolescence, replace only the component and not the entire solution. But let's say our impact, it's small. We are always interested to understand what we can do for our customers. And so far, what we have seen is that a big aspect that maybe not discussed too much today is in the processes. So working the processes, for example, how to direct the goods in the harbor can change, how it's the impact on that you can have on the energy, or how to reduce the traffic that is incoming into the harbor. It's where we try to do our best. Better is the process, lower is the traffic, and lower is the consumption and the pollution. But of course, this is something we can do all together, because maybe different niche together can do the result. So that's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very
Never think
point.
about
Very
being too small. I'm fully convinced that many small companies, but really convinced, often put forward ideas that are absolutely valuable. So thank you. If no one else wants to jump in and say something, I think that we can.
I think we can conclude for today. First of all, let me thank Janice, who managed to turn off the presentation, so it will not stay in WebEx forever. Yanni, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation and discussion. And of course, thank you to all the other speakers and to the participants. I know that they have been listening carefully. As Marco just said, I believe there has been a lot of interest for everything we heard. So from our side, from Christina and myself as technical partners in this project, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to bring those interesting speakers online with you. And Martina, thank you very much, and Davide for organizing this. And of course, we'll follow up with you for the next parts. Let us say already that in our planning, we have one step that is to collect feedback and see what additional webinars we can possibly organize within the time that we have left from this project. So we'll be very happy to hear from the companies and see how we can provide more and more targeted information. And I think you have already locked one slot for a possible.
Exactly.
To mention this before you close the meeting, and that's all from me. I don't know, Christina, if you want to say something.
Well, we're open to questions from the companies that have attended and companies that will see the recording. So please forward any questions to us, and with our turn, we'll ask our esteemed speakers that participated in today's webinar to answer those. And please let us know about the, I think it's the Silogy fair that we will be participating in. So let us know so we can plan in advance speakers and everything else.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, from my side, first of all, thank you both, Christine and Spiros, because I know you did hard work and in trying to understand a little bit more who we are, which are our needs, and then finding the right experts for today. As you anticipated, yes, we booked already one slot of time at the fair, which is called the Sea Future, and will be based in La Spezia. We have booked one slot the 1st of October. So we will follow to the companies, sending them the registration and a survey in order to understand which aspects they would like to deep a little bit more related to the concepts that we mentioned today and that we presented today. Again, thank you. Thanks to all the experts, and see you the next time, and hopefully in La Spezia, where you can come both physically or virtually, because we will have this option. But in any case, we will see there at least. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye to everyone. Bye.